Your new music picks for spring of 2022 have arrived. Hey everyone, Cadaver Kelly here. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm an underground music journalist with a focus in post-punk wave, goth rock, death rock, synth pop, and dark punk. In this video, I'm going to be sharing my picks for new music releases from spring of 2022. This will cover March through May of 22 and will include albums and EPs. It does not include singles. As always, this will include all of the typical genres under the goth umbrella: goth rock, death rock, dark post-punk, dark wave, but it will also include other types of dark alternative music like synth pop, shoegaze, and industrial. I will drop a link in the description to a list of where you can find these releases on Bandcamp. So without further ado, let's jump right into it, starting with March of 2022. On March 3rd, Athens, Greece-based dark rock band The Black Capes released a 10-track album called Looks Like Death. Some of this album borders on goth rock, some of it's more on the hard rock and metal side. I would recommend this to fans of Fields of the Nephilim. On March 4th, New York-based indie synth and dream pop artist Voss released an 8-track album called The After. This one is a little lighter than the synth pop I usually recommend. It's got more of that poppy club electronic sound, but it's got a really dreamy ethereal quality that I think some goths could appreciate. I'd also like to mention that Voss puts on a mind-blowing live performance. Also on March 4th, Japanese death rock band 13th Moon released a 3-track EP called Blood or Love. If you're into campy, fun horror death rock like 45 Grave, give it a listen. Another one from March 4th, Portland-based death rock band Nyx Division released a 6-track debut EP called Dark Star. I'm really excited about this band because a lot of the members of Nyx Division come from other favorite death rock bands of mine. This EP was excellent and did not fall short of my expectations. On March 18th, Swedish shoegaze artist Principe Valiente released a 10-track album called Barricades. This album was absolutely brilliant. If you're into shoegaze and that modernized post-punk revival sound, check it out. Also on March 18th, Swedish post-punk artist Rotten Mind released a 12-track album called Unflavored. This is not a goth band, but they are post-punk and actually lean a little more towards the punk side of post-punk. I would still categorize them as post-punk though, but that punk influence is front and center. So if you're into both post-punk and punk rock, check this album out. On March 22nd, Belarus-based cold wave artist Zyybuu released a 4-track EP called Sid Moi Cringe. This is pretty solid Eastern European cold minimal post-punk. If you're a fan of Molchat Dama, check this one out. On March 29th, Russian cold wave artist Monoplan released a 4-track EP called Stars Above Us. That's the English translation for this title because I cannot seem to get the Russian pronunciation down for it, but it's a really cool EP. It has some nice post-punk sounds to it, but it also has some 80s style synth pop work that reminds me of old school video games. So if you're into chiptunes, check this one out. Moving along to April of 2022, and we've got a lot to cover for April. On April 1st, LA darkwave duo Forever Grey released an 8-track album called Sympathy. This is a beautiful, mellow darkwave album featuring lovely post-punk guitar and bass, 80s reminiscent synth work, and deep brooding vocals. Also on April 1st, Spanish shoegaze duo STEREOSKOP released a 12-track album called Silk onto Reptile Music. I would recommend this album to fans of Cocteau Twins. On April 4th, Italian darkwave artist Chemical Waves released a 13-track album called When We Were Full of Hope. This one features a lot of collaborations with other artists. As a result, it's a mixed bag of sounds. Depending on the track, it ranges from post-punk to synth pop to industrial and experimental electronic. It's a really unique and collaborative album. On April 5th, Texas-based post-industrial artist Death Loves Veronica released an 11-track album called Corruption for the Insidious. If you're into heavily experimental electronic music, check this album out. On April 8th, Isle of Man-based darkwave band Mark E. Moon released a 6-track EP called Lux Vindicte. This one is a little grittier and more third wave inspired than some of Mark E. Moon's previous releases. I would recommend it to fans of 90s goth rock and darkwave. Also on April 8th, Turkish goth post-punk band Oscuridad Eterna released a 4-track EP called Burning. This is some solid goth post-punk. If you're into first wave UK and European goth bands like Skeletal Family, check it out. Second release from Russian cold wave artist Monoplan. On April 8th, Monoplan released a 4-track EP called Igra. On April 15th, Chilean post-punk band Temple Solar released a 6-track EP called City. This one actually reminded me of some of the post-punk and goth stuff that was coming out during the 2000s MySpace era. So if you're into bands like The Beauty of Jamina or Plastique Noir, check it out. On April 17th, Swedish indie post-punk duo Ragdolls released a 5-track EP called Punching the Shadows. This one is not a goth album. It's that brighter, more popular post-punk, but I really liked it, so if you're into that sound, check it out. On April 18th, UK goth post-punk band Chaos Bleak released a 5-track EP called Virus Shadow. I would recommend this one to fans of London After Midnight. On April 21st, California-based post-punk band Fearing released a 4-track EP called Desolate. This was some beautiful gothy post-punk that had a hint of vaguely lo-fi quality to it. I absolutely loved this EP. On April 22nd, Cincinnati, Ohio-based post-punk band Crime of Passing released a 9-track self-titled debut album. I've been following Crime of Passing for a few years, and they've put out a few great EPs and demos, but this is their first full-length album. This album did not disappoint. It's raw, it's dark, and it has hints of 80s style synth pop and old school industrial, with post-punk being the most dominant style. Also on April 22nd, Polish cold wave band Cabaret released an 11-track album called Cold Calculations. I would say the style of this one is post-punk bordering on death rock. I would recommend it to fans of Ich Mal Deutschland. Third release for April 22nd, Netherlands-based shoegaze duo Resplandor released an 8-track album called Tristeza. If you're into dreamy shoegaze with heavy reverb, check it out. On April 25th, German darkwave artist Attic Frost released a 10-track album called A New Kind of Hopelessness. If you're into bands like Hapax, you'll probably dig this album. On April 27th, UK darkwave artist The Secret Experiment released a 6-track EP called In These Shadows. This may just be my favorite release from The Secret Experiment yet. It is exactly my style of darkwave. It's got that second wave 80s reminiscent sound with some beautiful synth pop elements. Last but not least, May of 2022. On May 2nd, Russian death rock band Deathhawk released a 5-track EP called Meet Me in the Grave, or at least that's the English translation of the title. Deathhawk is pretty traditional death rock, so if you're into classic death rock bands, you'll probably enjoy this one as well. On May 5th, Irish goth rock band pMad released a 6-track EP called Broken. If you're into the more hard rock leaning side of goth rock and post-punk, check it out. On May 6th, Indonesian dark disco duo Camlann released an 11-track album called Train to 86th Street. If you're into synth pop or dark electronic music, do not sleep on Camlann. I was blown away by their first album, and this latest release did not disappoint. Also on May 6th, German synth electronic duo Paradox Obscur released a 9-track album called Morphogenesis. If you're into dark electro pop, give this album a listen. Another one from May 6th, Ukrainian post-punk band Gentle Ropes released a 7-track album called Control. I love this album. It's very dark post-punk driven by brooding guitar work. If you're into Batcave era goth bands, check it out. Second release from Russian cold wave artist Zyybuu. On May 8th, Zyybuu released a 10-track album called Ostrov Krinja. I absolutely love this album. I would recommend it to anyone who digs minimal lo-fi post-punk. On May 20th, Irish dark rock band Movement released a 10-track album called Transformation. I would recommend this album to fans of Children on Stun. Also on May 20th, Greek darkwave artist Reflection Black released a 3-track EP called Entering Dreamtime. I would recommend this to fans of 90s and 2000s darkwave, or if you're a fan of A Flock of Seagulls, because this EP has a darkwave cover of Iran on it. And there you have it, your new music picks for spring of 2022. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video.